Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Your host Dharam Singh here once again with another professional. You have been watching this webinar for a long time. I invite some of the specialists or professionals, program manager, professional, portfolio manager, professional, or maybe senior leaders, especially because they have done some extraordinary work in their professional life, and they have gone through my training program, and I know they have something to offer. And so this time I have very talented, very special person, Joseph. Welcome, Joseph.
Hey there. Good afternoon.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting session. But I will encourage you to put your question on the question pad, and love to see, get some question. And if Joseph cannot answer, I will answer and collectively get you, answer the questions. But I'm sure we'll get there. So thank you again for joining on this session, and you have been great support for these events. And I think we probably have 60 professionals already gone through this kind of program. So if you have not seen, please go to the YouTube channel. You will learn from them as well. So, and continue to, if you subscribe, you will continue to get notification for the future videos as well, future webinars and recordings. So once again, thanks Joseph, and thanks all for joining. And just to introduce myself, my name is Dharam Singh, and I have been training and guiding, mentoring project program portfolio managers. I started my journey in 2009. That's where I was preparing for my PgMP, and I was part of PMI Sydney at the time, Sydney, Australia. And I thought, we invited Dr. Ginger Levine. She encouraged us to do the certification. So out of 8, 2 people got the certificate, including me and the president of the chapter. And that's where my journey started. And since then, and under the guidance of Dr. Ginger Levine, I built my own material, and she, then start teaching program PGMPs and PMPs and all the different certificates we have now. Scale Agile we have, DS certificates we have now. You asked me to, I'm not teaching safe, but I have a good team to help you out. Anyway, so that's separate. And by the way, I'm running a company called vCare Project Management. We just take care of project management. That's what it is. All right. So part of the program, you're going to get to learn from Joseph and from me some tips and hints, and you will also able to earn 1 PDU. So people joining live, you will get to see the PDU code sometime later, especially around halfway through or later. And people watching this webinar after the recording, as a recording, then you please contact me once you watch the recording, and I will able to help you out with the PDU. I might ask you a quiz or something, just to scare you. Not really. Yeah, but yes, please reach out to me for any question, clarification now or later. Happy to guide you, help you out. So once again, Joseph, welcome. And would you like to say a few words?
Sure. So as Dharam mentioned, I did go through his PGMP mentoring program, which was a really excellent program. Just to give a little background for why I was really interested in getting the certification, is how I was able to find his offering, but I actually learned a lot more about program management. He was really good about tying it to my experience and his experience. So just for everyone watching, I highly recommend, if you're interested in any PMI certifications, to work with him. But a little about myself. I am in South Carolina now. I started out as a systems engineer, and I've worked my way through different industries, working in retail and corporate IT, and now I'm consulting federal agencies, and I'm currently a program manager for VMware.
Yep, and they're doing a really good job with VMware. You got recent promotion as an official program manager, and congratulations for that.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. So, and Joseph, you have completed your PGMP on 2nd of November 2021.
Yes.
So, yeah, congratulations for that as well. It was great effort from you, and in a short time, you put your effort together, you align yourself, and while your busy schedule going on, you managed to get your PgMP done in the short time. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there are several questions I have, and the protocol is I will be asking some questions to Joseph, and he will go through his answer, analyze, give you best of his answers. It's not about answer; it's more about explaining how these things can also help you in your professional life, and that's what your approach should be. And everybody's situation is different. What worked for Joseph may not work for you, or what worked for him may work for you as well. So learn from him and see what can work for you, and keep trying out. If it doesn't work, see what else can work for you. And otherwise, you contact him or contact me. I will guide you, help you out. So, Joseph, let's get started with the questions. And unless you have anything else to say,
let's get started.
Yeah, perfect. And as I said, guys, feel free to put your questions, whether it's about the PgMP, about the specific question we're asking or discussing, and we will take your question at the right time. I will be moderating the questions, so when I feel the right time, is a logical point, I will ask the question. All right, so welcome again, and let's start. So Joseph, and especially I'm talking, based on your experience. For a technical project or program manager, what kind of cross-functional skills and capabilities are required for effective execution? There are lots of skills, but which skills you feel has helped you or should be, program or project manager should aspire to get or learn them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I took some time to reflect on this, especially because having received the promotion recently, work with a lot of newer project managers in my industry. So I coach a lot of project managers on the team, and I was thinking, what are the main things we focus on? And there's really three things that I find that our conversations center around. So I'm going to touch on those three skill sets, and that's technical acumen, sales skills, and emotional intelligence. And starting with technical acumen, I think that sounds like such an obvious answer when we talk about technical project management, because I do have the technical background. From a PM perspective, it helps with things like knowing what questions to ask if we're in a change window, or understanding what it means for an outage or maintenance windows, knowing what the different teams are. That's all very obvious, but I think what's more important, especially in the tech world, is knowing how to keep up and manage projects, and understanding the tools that are out there to do so. So I know in every industry, not just technology, there's a lot of challenges that we have to overcome, especially around communication and information management, and especially now that a lot of it's virtual. So how are we displaying this complex information, and how are we going to make sure that everyone's in a meeting and they can contribute, they can join, they know how to actually get on their laptops and do what they need to do on a daily basis. And what's especially true for tech companies is they love to buy more and more tools. So on a weekly basis, I might be using Microsoft Project and Teams, Miro whiteboard tool, Google Workspace, Slack, you name it, we have to know what it is. And why it's important to keep up with those technologies is because you don't want your team members coming into meetings that are inefficient. So if you're not sure why in Microsoft Project the dependencies aren't linking correctly, or you're trying to mark a task as 100% and it's only showing 97%, your team members are going to get frustrated very quickly. They don't want to sit there and wait for you to figure out how to use the tools. So making sure you know, how can this tool add value? How can we benefit from it? One of my favorites is Miro right now, the whiteboarding tool. As you can tell, I love whiteboards. And you've got to make the meetings virtually as easy as it is in person. You want them to walk into a room and start putting their ideas on a board. So how do we make that same experience happen virtually? We need to test our links before we set up meetings. We need to make sure that we have a plan of attack for how we're going to structure the board make sure that we're aware of the technologies and how they can actually add value instead of making meetings more difficult. So that's technical skills, I think, is a big one. Second one that I said is sales skills, and I think this breaks down into a couple of categories. So as a consultant right now, I do work with the sales team, and I'm trying to change our deals, make sure that renewals are more appropriate for the next year, or figure out different opportunities. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. I think we can take from a successful salesperson a couple specific skills on how they do their job and apply those to project and program management. So I really think that if we look at it, relationship building and negotiation are two skills that salespeople use every day that we've got to start using more as program managers. And I think relationship building is pretty obvious. It's critical for trust. Whoever your end customer is, however you're communicating with people, especially when we start talking about benefits. So if we look at the differentiation between project and program management, we're looking at what are the benefits that we're bringing to the table. It's really easy for a leadership team to understand ROI, but what happens when we start talking about intangible benefits? They get a little bit nervous because we can't show them a formula that says if you invest this much money, you're going to get this much money out of it. It's more of you're going to get some intangible benefits. So to have these conversations requires a lot of trust. And that's when we start talking about negotiating as well. So if we talk about what does negotiation mean, the formal definition, it's a win-win outcome that's sustainable for all parties. So how do we apply that to program management? I think project management, we're all used to this. You walk into a room and leadership says, but you've got to be done in 6 weeks. And you turn around and you talk to your technical team and they say, no way, we need 3 months. Great, let's negotiate. Let's talk, do we crash? Are we going to fast track? Are we going to reduce scope? That's easy. But whenever we take it to the next level, we're not talking about resource management. We're talking about program management. We're looking at the benefits register. We're looking at the business case. We know we have to charter the program by getting an approved business case. And that means that the leadership team has to trust that what you're putting in there is true. So last month, I was talking to my customer about automation. And what I was saying was, you know, automation is important, yes, because it's going to help improve costs. But the other things that we're not taking into account right now is improved security. We're going to reduce human error. We're going to adhere to best practices. And those types of things are harder to show in ROI. And it's really important that whenever you're putting together the business case, you focus on negotiation, because the other thing that has to go in there is program success criteria. So how am I setting up my program team for success? I can't have unrealistic expectations by saying you'll never be hacked or there'll never be another outage or anything like that. It's important to understand we can sort of quantify it a little bit, even though it's an intangible benefit, maybe by reducing human error and adhering to best practices. We're looking at our current downtime percentage of X and our goal is to get it to Y. Or you could look at what is the value to the business, because if we're talking about goals and objectives, how are we tying that to vision? Does the added stability that we're bringing through automation allow you to innovate and create more things that will lead to the business value? So this, again, this is setting up your team for success, but it's also giving the leadership team what they want, and at the heart of it, that's negotiation, which requires trust. So that's something that I've really tried to develop in project managers who are coming to this space. And the last thing is the emotional intelligence piece that we deal with as PMs. And I know this one kind of speaks for itself, but it's been really critical, especially in this period. And I think we'll talk more about the digital era in a few minutes, but making sure that our teams are comfortable and understanding how people operate. So, for example, 2 projects ago, I had a consultant confide some information in me, and it was some personal information. And I wanted to listen and be there to support her, and she needed to seek a therapist, and I was there to work with her through all of that. And there was times where I was confused for why is she not showing up for work on time, and why is she being checked out in these meetings, and trying to check in with myself about why do I feel frustration and understanding what I'm feeling and how am I reacting. it's kind of how I started to realize, well, I don't understand. So let's have a conversation. And ultimately what I learned, and she felt comfortable sharing with me, brought us to being a more productive team, because now we're all on the same page. And it's something that I continue to work on, and I continue to encourage my team to work on, is being aware. So I think the best advice I've been given, and this is what I try to apply in terms of emotional intelligence, is have self-awareness to your emotions so that you can control your reactions. So that's really how I try to look at it. Why am I feeling this way, and what am I going to do about it?
Mm. Yeah, no, very important skills. All the skills you talked about, technical skills, sales and negotiation skills. So when you start saying sales, hey, hang on, why I have to learn about sales skills? That's what these people are paid for. But it's not about how to sell the product. It's about selling yourself, selling your team's success and how are we going to tell the work we have done so far. It's a negotiating, the support. That's the more you're talking from the stakeholder engagement point of view.
Absolutely.
How to build the relationship with the stakeholders.
Yeah, especially when we're diving into the business case. In a sense, you have to sell this as a program manager. You have to be the expert and know inside and out what's bringing value, how are we driving it back. So it really does turn into sales techniques. Yeah,
and I like this emotional intelligence. Sometimes if you overlook this part, you don't have a good team. You have team, but you don't have the connection with them. But when you start connecting, not at the work level only, but at different level, you understand what pain they're going through, what emotion, especially now in the COVID time. Yes, we may feel that we are out of COVID or we're going through the COVID. People are struggling. Not just because of health, but it's because of the monetary pressure they have. Or the kids are at home, and and they are working from home and day in, day out. That is putting a lot of pressure on a lot of people nowadays. Stress
Absolutely.
is going on. And as a project manager, program manager, what you can do, but of course, you talk to them on regular basis. Don't just say talk about the work only. To think about different level. And sometimes people are not open to talk everything. But when you build a relationship, people think, yeah, this project manager, program manager really thinking from my point of view as well, not just always work. And that's very, very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you for the great answer.
Yeah.
All right. So my second question, what are strategies needed by program manager for effective stakeholder engagement? We touched a little bit. And managing high performance project team in the digital era.
Yeah, I think this is a good transition from what we were just talking about. So I'll start with effective stakeholder engagement. And I think at a high level, the way I approach this is with kind of the PMI methodology, just building off of it, but who needs what and when, but specifically why. I always put the emphasis on why. And this does build off of some of what we were talking about with trust and negotiation. That extends into all stakeholders. Anyone could be impacted by the project, so maybe not just the leadership team or not just the management team that we're working with. But I think a lot of times when we think about stakeholder engagement, we go to the really tactile pieces. We're thinking emails and scheduled calls and status reports. And a lot of times in my world, in the technical project management realm, those are contract deliverables. So that tells me in the contract, how often am I doing this? How am I delivering it? What has to be included? And the challenge is when the contract's written, the program team isn't assembled. And we also don't know who we're working with from the customer side or the end users. And so a lot of times, even though the contracts team, they had great intentions, it falls short. So time and time again, I find myself in the same situation of, why are we having these calls? Why are we running it this way? And the answer is always because it's a contract deliverable. And it's something that it really frustrates me, because doing contract mods is a lot of work and no one really wants to do that either. So we have to figure out, how do we make this more effective? And what I've done, so I actually had this issue on a large program that I've been running for the last year and a half. So what we were noticing was we didn't have attendance like we needed on our status report meetings. and leadership was saying, oh, well, we didn't know about that. Why weren't we communicated to? And it's like, well, you didn't join the call. So we had to stop as a team and pause as the program management team and say, well, who needs what? What are they looking for even? I mean, are we presenting the right information? And we really weren't. The accomplishments, those are great for internal reasons. The accomplishments were good for contract compliance, but when we're talking about taking valuable time from a leader's day, they're more interested in what's not going well. What are you working on next week? What do you need from me? What can I provide to you? So we had to tailor the way we're putting our reports together. And then we had to look at, okay, so what do they need and when? And are we meeting too frequently? Is the timing not work? And this specific customer always has an emergency. They're never on scheduled calls. So what delivery method is best? Is texting going to be more effective? Is hitting them up on IM? Is calling them right at the start of the day or the end of the day better? So we're trying out different things. And as we're trying these different methods, we're figuring out that we still don't know the why. I keep going back to why do they need this? And that's when we started to really make a difference. So understanding that this executive is injecting our report into his monthly status reports. Okay, that's good to know. Why do you do your status reports? Is it to show accomplishments? Is it to show completed percentages? Like what information would help you get that done? Versus I'm talking to a contracting office representative and they're telling me they need to know what's coming from our quality assurance reviews. So let me figure out how to get you that information every 2 weeks. You guys don't need the same information. So it's understanding the why behind it that really made a difference for our team, to where we've not necessarily had better meeting participation, but we're seeing that the information that people are getting is now the right information. It's actionable, it's relevant, and it's timely. So I think that for us has been the key.
Yeah, that why question is very, very important, so that if we really know what's the intention of this information, and if once you know that, hey, this is really important for the decision making, then your focus can shift. Otherwise, you just treat another requirement, under request.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and having spending enough time upfront will help you to learn more about the stakeholders and who they are, what's the role, and how important the role is, and with respect to the program and projects. So these very basic information can be very, very useful for you.
Absolutely. So getting to the second part of your question, talking about managing high performance project teams, especially now in the digital era. I think that developing and creating high performing teams has always been a challenge, but now I think that everything's virtual, so it's been even more challenging. Prior to travel restrictions, I'm sure I'm not alone, but project kickoffs for me, they were, let's fly everyone to a facility for a week, let's all go to dinner, let's do an escape room, let's do some stuff, let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't overnight or that week, but I felt like we were able to really move through the forming and storming phases so that we could get to performing much quicker. I feel like now virtually I look at my teams and I'm like, oh my God, the storming phase is never going to end, but it does. So I think that what I've done to attack that, there's a good book that I recently read that I would recommend to people. It's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. But he walks through a pyramid that talks about what is a high performing team, and there's pillars and they all build off of the last. And it's telling the story through, it's telling the information through a story. So it's not just reading, this is how it could work. This is how it worked in this instance. And the reason it's called Dysfunctions is a lot of those pillars are lacking. So he's talking about the absence of trust, the fear of conflict, lack of commitment, and so on. So flipping it, we know at the bottom of the pyramid, we have to have 2 things in our teams, which is trust and healthy conflict. And I think that that's really what we're always trying to build when we're in person. And it's much easier to talk about someone's family and understand what's going on in their life and just get to know people that way. So how do we do that in the digital era? I really think that that is the responsibility of the PM. We've got to create opportunities to discuss things outside of work. We've got to make sure that our teams show up, and sometimes maybe we delay calls by 15 minutes because we need to get to know one another a little bit better, or maybe we show up one day and they thought they were going to be talking about a status report, but it's actually a chance to play trivia, and the winner gets an Amazon gift card. You just got to create opportunities where the team can discuss these things that would usually happen at dinner, or things that would happen outside of the meeting room, and the camaraderie that comes from that. So I try to think outside of the box. I want to get my team together for virtual wine tasting nights, or things that aren't just awkward, like eating food on Zoom that we've been doing for 2 years now. How do we get something that's actually going to be fun and productive? So that's my trick there.
So how do you do your virtual wine tasting event?
So there's some companies that you can work with where they will send wine to different addresses, little like single bottles of 4 different wines or something, and then I personally am a big wine enthusiast, so I like to do some of the research and talk about the wines, but they also offer that as well, where they'll do a video or send tasting cards, and I think they do beer ones as well. So it's just a fun way to do something a little different.
So what are you going to do with the people like me who don't drink?
It's a great question. I guess trivia, right?
Yeah, I know. You can say, there's a Coke, a bottle of Coke or something.
Yeah, yeah, we could do like we'll recreate the world of Coke, where we have 32 flavors of Coke mailed to you.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, so I think this is a good idea to especially in the virtual world we are living at the moment. And people are different parts of the world. It's almost impossible to get everyone now in the same room. Especially one is the, not only the COVID restriction, but also now people are so used to working from home. They don't want to travel anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. So as a leader of the project program, you need to find the ways you can build your relationship with your team, and especially as I mentioned, it's a virtual environment now. And you need to, see what can work, and without going too much into personal life, get to talk to them. And sometimes when you listen to them, something just simple as listening can change. And I used to have a team when I was working with HP. My team was sitting in Manila. Realized that one of the person who was very key for my program, his performance was going downward. And just asking what's going on, and initially he was little bit hesitant, then start sharing about his family life and how his work, which is sometimes go for 3 shifts, is impacting his family life and so and so. And I said, I cannot do much what he's going through, family, but I will try my best to, I talk to my manager, I will get the timing wise, make sure you don't work 3 shifts or something. And especially the project was so important, the work was so important. I talked to my manager, look, I need this person only in the Australian time zone. He should not be working anywhere near the time zone. So that happened. Actually, he has to use his power of going up to second in command and so and so. That happened. But in this process, I found, good friend. So when he said, Dharam, ever you stuck with something, don't worry about anything. You just call me. I don't worry about the time. I will be there for you. So he helped me many times, especially when the deadlines were so difficult to achieve. But we got there. That's where the virtual relationship nowadays, mutual relationship you're building with your team members, the emotional intelligence you're showing here is huge advantage to you.
Absolutely. And I think checking in with team members too, it's so easy to just say, oh, they're working from home, they must be just dropping off their kids and going to the doctor and watching TV, but we're all human, so let's figure out why. What can we do to make it more fun at work?
Exactly, and it's a freedom as well for them. At the same time, you will not believe many people, they start in the morning, 7 o'clock, and they continue working. They end up in between. They do their cooking as well, and looking after the kids and their pets, and that is actually adding more stress on them. Because when they go to office, they just focus on office work. But now there's office work. your kids as well, and school homework. So you need to, as a manager or leader, you need to understand that and give them some space as well. Don't always call, hey, my way the delivery I asked you to do yesterday, but we know we have deadlines to meet.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. Good. Thank you for the great answer. All right. So my next question, and guys, you have opportunity to ask question, whether it's to the skills or project program management. Please put your question. More question we're going to have, we'll have better discussion. All right. So Joseph, I have another question. So based on recent McKinsey's report, 2 out of 3 large programs regularly exceed initial budget, miss schedule estimates, and under-deliver against business objectives and benefits. So what has been your experience with these underlying issues as a program manager in the IT space?
Okay. I've never had any of these issues, so I'm kidding. I wish I could say I didn't know, but I think it's even more relatable. I think the IT space probably contributes to a higher percentage than even 67%, because I think there's a couple of reasons. I think objectives are changing really quickly at a company level, and that leads to scope creep. There's not effective executive sponsors for some programs or projects. It doesn't seem like it's going to be that impactful. And I think that whenever we avoid putting up front and looking at what is the importance behind this program, what's it actually going to do, we start with no executive sponsor correctly, that leads to ineffective change management. And then we start having outages, and there starts being a lot of things that were avoidable. And the challenge with tech is that things are never constant. There's always going to be a software update. There's always going to be latest and greatest. We're always going to spend a couple of months planning for something up front, and it's going to be a 2-year, 3-year engagement, but we really have no idea what that technology is going to look like in 6 to 8 months. We could be uncovering a major security vulnerability. There could be a much better way to do something. And a lot of the companies that I work with now, especially in the government agency space, they're not taking an agile approach to things. So we're forced to start out with this waterfall approach where we're really trying to plan ahead and look at what's coming, and then everything's about, well, we've got to adhere to this, we've got to stay on this. And I think that's probably what plays into this as well. I think if there was more of an agile approach, we wouldn't be saying that we're not maintaining the right scope or we're not delivering on time, because we'd be talking about much smaller bits. We'd be looking at what we actually need to accomplish in the next couple of weeks versus this really long-term vision and then comparing the baseline to it long-term. So I think that what I've taken away from reflecting on this question is making sure that we're avoiding things that are totally preventable up front. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next question, but things like making sure your executive sponsor understands the severity and the real challenges at hand, and making sure that your change management policies are prepared for that, and that you're not setting yourself up for failure from the beginning by not setting the foundation.
Yeah, definitely. These are some of the basic foundational steps as the project or program leader you have to take. You should take. There has to be ground rule. There are change requests. If they change requests, you follow the change control process. And any requirement, new requirement, yes, we may have to consider them, but these need to be properly estimated and timed out. Otherwise, you keep accepting the work, but their deadlines are not changing. And one point you cannot cope up with them, and that's where the program or project gets failure. All right, guys. Yeah. So as we talked about, this is very important. Ground rule and how to make sure everybody adhere to. So one of the things which we have learned in part of the PgMP as well, the process, following the process. You create a process and you follow the process. Sounds like another motherly thing, but it's very important to have the right process established, and it should be reviewed again, so that we are not following for the sake of process. But if it's working, then follow. If not working, then refine it. Escalation has to be, and roles and responsibility clearly identified. Number of things can be useful, which can stop failure or identify the failure early enough. Let me ask next question. So how do companies maximize the chance of their chance that their IT delivers the expected value on time within budget?
Okay, so solving the world's problems right now. Here we go.
There you go.
So I think this definitely builds off of what we were just talking about. This starts with risk management, change management strategies. But one thing that I've really learned, no pun intended, is that lessons learned is crucial in the space that I'm in now, especially when we start talking about IT projects. The likelihood that you're the very first customer to do something is very low. So let's bring in a team that has researched how did we do this at another company, how did we do this at another agency, whoever you're working with, and what went well, what didn't go well, what was the surprise. Sometimes there's things that we didn't expect to go well and they went really well, so let's maximize those. So we're not just focusing on the negative, but we've got to show up to the customer call whenever we're doing a kickoff call ready to answer those questions. And if you're a customer, you need to ask all of those questions at that point of what is this team, because now the team's assembled. So before it was just a sales team, but now you actually have the implementation team with you. So what is unique about our environment that you haven't seen before? Or what is it that is similar to my environment that I can start preparing now to make sure that we're successful in this engagement? So I think as we talk about tech projects, that is such a huge thing. Lessons learned, we always harp on it, but especially now we've got to start using that. And so once the project does get going, of course, there's project plans, there's forecasting, depending on what the project looks like. And those are only good if the data is maintained and there's actions taken from it immediately. So for example, in my projects, a lot of times what I'm dealing with is there might be a 2-day delay because a network team member is out of the office, or for some reason we can't do something for 2 more days. So when I talk to resource management, they're like, it's just a couple days, let's just eat it and we'll make it up later. And that's not realistic. We never make up time later. And if we're talking about a 2-year program, we may have 15 people on it, a few days here, a week there, multiplied by 15, multiplied by 2 years. That starts adding up really quickly, especially if you have a limited bucket of hours. So now we're talking about we're having to use contingency hours because of these reasons. We didn't want to stop the project. We didn't want to stop them from billing. We didn't want to tell the customer you weren't ready, so we're going to pull our resources for a while. And now we have to use contingency. The contingency wasn't put in place for all of those reasons. It's what's happening in 18 months that we didn't know about because we put the contingency and the whole budget together 2 years ago. So what's changing? Are we rebaselining? Are we changing scope? That's whenever we should be tapping into contingency. So I think this also leads to some of the issue of not completing it on budget. And then whenever we're talking about on time, one big learning that I've had for completing things on time is making sure that you understand and become an expert in change management policies at the organization where the project or program is happening as soon as you can, because especially with government agencies, there's a lot of change freezes. So you may think, oh yeah, we're implementing this, it only takes 4 months. So starting today, 4 months from now, we'll be done. But turns out 2 months from now, there's a change freeze for 6-7 months. So you've got to adjust. That can't be a surprise. Or you might think, okay, we're ready to go live. Let's submit a change request. But the change board met yesterday, and they only meet every 2 weeks. So now you can't even get your change request for implementation approved for 2 more weeks. Those are totally avoidable things that you've got to build into your project plan. A lot of technical project managers focus on just the technical aspects of, well, we need this port opened and we need this server installed and we need this much time for debugging. And all of that stuff is very valid, but also the change management, the business processes, those also have to be there. So I guess if I'm tying it all together, if we want to improve budget and on time, it's spend a lot of time up front reviewing lessons learned from other engagements, making sure that forecasts, project plans are comprehensive and up to date, and take action when things deviate, even if it seems insignificant at the time.
Yeah, perfect. And setting expectation early enough, that's another thing. Yes, if there's an unrealistic time frame or unrealistic scope or requirement, we should be upfront that as well. We should not put extra pressure on you or your team at later stage.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely crucial.
Yeah, that's where your early skills you talked about, negotiation, sales skills are very, very important here.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Okay, moving to next question. To innovate and to move fast, how do cloud-based service help manage large program implementation?
Yeah, so cloud-based services, I like the way that that was phrased, because I think right now what we're seeing in specifically the technology world is there's this big shift in how companies are approaching things. So the goal now is to provide a service and not just providing a product that you can buy off the shelf. And that's really innovating. It's really innovative in allowing companies to bring to the table more things. And I think there's some debate over why is this shift happening. If you're looking at a business perspective as a tech company, then you're tying people in. You have longer licensing agreements. You probably make a little bit more money because they're paying every month or every year, however your licensing model is. But then if you look at it from a customer perspective, because you're paying that ongoing cost, you now have a lot more included that you can use. So you're getting more frequent updates. You have less infrastructure requirements on your end. And there's a lot of services that are coming. We're seeing a lot of things like customer success, technical account managers. Those are really hot things right now in the tech industry that a lot of places you're provided, it's included in what you're paying. And so you now have additional services to use with your internal business processes. So I guess getting back to the question though, how does that promote innovation and enhance implementations of large programs? I think that the real main advantage of cloud-based technologies is that they are constantly updating their new features and their technologies from current users. And so that means that we're able to add more value as it goes. So what do we do for program managers? Well, we're constantly reviewing our goals and objectives. We're constantly reviewing the business value, because this update that comes out in this tool that we're using in 6 months wasn't available 6 months ago, and we don't have to wait. We don't have to buy it. They're just automatically updating that for us. So how does that impact our goals and objectives? Do we have more benefits than we did before, or does it take away from anything? I mean, there is a flip side, but I think that's where we, as program managers, take that. But I think we can look at what's coming in tech overall as a good example. So I think virtual reality is arguably the next big thing, I'll say. I think we've seen in the past trends similar to this one. If we look at the start of the internet, there was people who thought it was absolutely insane, and they just wanted to listen to a football game on their AM radio, and they didn't understand why they would ever tune in on the internet. And then we saw something very similar with e-commerce. Why would I buy something when I can't touch it, feel it, smell it? And now we couldn't imagine life without Amazon. So is there going to be a time where we're not wrapping ourselves in screens, we're just putting on a little device? Maybe, I don't know, but let's just assume that that is the future. And let's say you're a retail company who focuses on manufacturing clothes. What you don't want to have to do is hire someone who specializes in VR and figure out how that's going to implement the technology directly into your company. Let's say you have a collaboration tool that you pay for on a monthly basis, something like a WebEx, a Zoom, GoToMeeting. that should be their next iteration, is how are they bringing collaboration to the next level with VR. So let a company who specializes in that use their services so that you don't have to become an expert in something other than manufacturing clothes. That's your bread and butter. So just pay for that service, and they can tell you how another competitor did it and how another person did it, and you have a lot more knowledge at your disposal. So I think that what we're going to see is an increase in those types of consulting services, partners to these companies. We're just these companies building out professional services within their own organization. And I also think we're going to see a bigger shift to agile approach to project management, because right now we're having to implement operations, which has always been a part of program management, but more than ever, we have software updates and other things that are just being put into an implementation that are not just, let's start up the server, let's click go. We're configuring things, we're doing more setting-based implementations instead of the traditional installs, because it's a cloud-based thing. And I think it'll take some time to get to agile in a lot of companies. I think a lot of I think I had a customer a couple months ago say, oh, we want to go agile, and I was like, hey, that's great, let's do it. And then like 5 minutes later, they said, okay, so we need a project plan for the next 9 months with all the dependencies. And it's like, okay, so we're not doing agile. Okay, we'll do a Scrum call and we'll say we're doing agile. That's great. And so I think it's baby steps, right? Like we can't just expect everyone to transform overnight. So I think that that's what we're going to see. And I think that's how we're going to keep using cloud technologies. And we're going to shift the way we approach projects and program management because of it.
Yeah, I mean, cloud technology is great. And I remember when I was working for EDS and used to wait 4 to 6 weeks for the server to arrive, and then another 2 to 3 weeks for them to rebuild and reimage or put all the stuff into this. And then it's already 6 weeks gone into this without having a movie. But now, thanks to the cloud technology, you call or maybe go to a web portal, you request for additional, availability, and then you have immediately. You don't have to wait. So a lot of things has improved. Productivity has gone up, and thanks to the agile, things are moving very, very fast. And it's good. Lot of good things involved. And of course, the cloud. I know VMware and IBM and HP and a lot of companies or AWS, they have spent a lot of money into this to build the infrastructure so that they can serve the companies, talked about the clothes manufacturing company or other companies, car manufacturing, so they can focus on their core business rather than worrying about IT or network and the connectivity, this and that. Let somebody else take care of that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where they should call VMware for that, isn't it?
Yes, VMware, great company to help with that. And I heard a good analogy once. It's something that we've been doing our whole lives, but this is just a new way of doing it. If you think about it, if you're a new company, you just sign up for electricity. You're not saying, okay, let me go buy all the stuff I need to make my own electricity to power this. No, we would never do that. So that's where we're shifting to with some of these technologies as well, is let me just pay for the service. I don't want to recreate and rebuild all of this stuff.
Actually, you reminded me when I did one setting up Asia Pacific level cloud setup for HP, and they call this project, this huge project, as utility something. Why are we calling utility when we are talking cloud and this? Then I realized, because just like you call the a good example, you need electricity, you just call them and you have electricity next day. You don't pay for the whole infrastructure. You don't have to pay for that. That's what it should be. So that's where now I realize, hey, that's the reason why that project was called utility services. That makes sense, huge sense. So, look, all this technology, all the transformation and all big things are happening. And of course, all these things are done or managed by great project and program managers. So, as a lot of you as you joined today, you are into project program portfolio management, and you have been doing a great job. So you should take some credit after that for that, just like Joseph has done. and I've done in my life, and I know exactly what you go through with the cloud technology or network technology or agile transformation. So I just don't talk in my class. I just don't talk about, hey, this is just theory. We have to associate this learning with something real, which we have, which people can appreciate that. That's what it is. So Joseph, I don't have any more questions, but I will appreciate if you want to take a step back and take us back to the journey. Why did you decide to do PgMP, and what you did to if you can take few create a roadmap for people, and why they should be considering PgMP or PfMP.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in a unique position in my current role where I had been doing project work for a couple years, and there was an opportunity to go to a new account that was where we were trying to develop a program. And my manager thought it would be a good opportunity for me to grow and expand my skill set. And day one, I realized he was correct. It was going to be a big undertaking. So I wanted to see what program management was really about, especially as we started to develop what we're calling a program with this customer. And I had taken the PMP the previous year. So I remember approaching the PMP initially thinking this is really just to add to my resume, and this is going to look good and set me apart from the rest, and it's a checkbox, and figuring out that PMI actually knows what they're talking about. And there was a lot of really good tools and techniques, and it's not that you have to follow everything, but you can pick and choose based on your engagement. So I started learning more about additional certifications because I was like, there has to be. I wasn't aware of the PgMP really when I first took the PMP, but I was like, there has to be something for this. And I found the PgMP, and I started researching, well, what does that really mean? And looking at the domains of benefits management and stakeholder engagement and governance, it was really becoming clear to me that this is what I was lacking because I had never been exposed to it in any way. And I think traditional program management, those skills are so critical. So at that point, I decided, okay, this is something I want to do. And the one thing I will say that's different about PMP and PgMP is the amount of information available on the internet and the amount of books out there. Now, on the one hand, that's good because we don't have to pile through so many things and figure out which one's the right resource for me, and is this a good one or bad one, because there's a lot of quality material for PgMP. But when you start looking into it, it is a little underwhelming at first of like, oh, okay, I have like 5 results on Amazon of books I can buy that'll be here in 3 days. So I then started to do research, which is what put me in touch with Dharam to be my personal mentor. And I was really glad I went through that because together we were able to build a more personalized plan based on my learning style. So I'm a tactile learner. I learn by writing, I learn by doing. So he recommended that I get Ginger's book that's a flashcard-based approach where you are reading the program management, the standard for program management, and really dissecting and understanding what you're learning. And for me, that was huge. So I wasn't just reading it and then 5 minutes later saying, wait, what did it say? I was forced to pay attention and write. So for me, that was really helpful. And Dharam was able to recommend that. So just knowing what resources to put in front of me and then talking to him each week, that provided structure for how quickly do we pace this. And I have some questions, and a lot of times I challenged Dharam. I would say, nope, the answer was wrong. Nope, I disagree. And I was wrong, he was right. But it was a good opportunity to talk through it and really understand. He wants to understand why I'm getting questions wrong. He doesn't care that you take an exam and you get a 40%. The point is, let's understand why you're getting questions wrong. Is it lack of understanding the content? Is it a lack of understanding the structure of the sentence? Because there are some tricks in there that repeat over and over. So that was really helpful. The other piece that I think can be overwhelming for people is the application process. So I will say it was not as big of an undertaking as I initially thought it was going to be. The words panel review sound very scary, but just think of it as writing a college essay, if you will. That's kind of the approach it takes. It's showing that you understand what the different domains are, and that you've had experience with those in your work experience. And it doesn't mean that you were having the title program manager for the last 5-7 years, whatever you have to based off of your education requirements show. It's just showing that you know what those terms mean, and you've had experience being in a place that has governance, or a place that does manage stakeholders. It's really not that overwhelming. So I would say look at there's 2 different prompts for each domain, and find one that you can really resonate with, and make sure that you're following tips. There's some really good tips that Dharam has out there. So I'm not going to try to regurgitate those because it has been a little while. But once you understand how to approach it, it's really not that overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very important to have your mindset. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do it. If Joseph can do it, if Dharam can do, I can also do it. And I can tell you, if I can do, anybody should be able to do it.
If I can do it, anyone can do it. I promise.
Yeah. Now, but it is not just about. I've seen people like they come with a very high. They're coming from the, very big universities and all those things, but they come and they can't perform. And some people with the coming average, and then they perform and they exceed the expectation. And I've seen in my class, so they have a group of people. Somebody who's not paying so much attention realize that he's the first person who completed the exam. It's actually, you need to build a vision for that, and have a plan, and have right books and right mentor with you, and then go for it. So it is doable. There are 3,600 PgMPs globally at the moment, and they have done it. So why can't you do it? So it's not difficult. People do say it's a difficult exam, but if you know what you're doing, you understand the concept, you understand the type of question, how to deal with them, I can tell you this exam it will become much easier than even PMP. A lot of my students, they complete the exam in 3 hours and 3 hours 30 minutes, something like this, and then remaining 15-20 minutes, whatever they have, they review it and they fix something. And I saw that they have to rush. The rushing is actually going to make your exam worse. Rather, you will become so smart by doing Ginger's question, my question, and different question I'm going to suggest. And you know what exactly you're doing. So that 170 question you can finish in less than 3 hours. I've seen a couple of people have done that less than 3 hours as well. They were not rushing. So you learn whole thing, how to approach, how to read, how to study, and you go and do the exam, and you pass exams. So with having 370 PgMPs now, I'm feeling very happy, and not that I'm going to stop. My goal is to get to 500 in the next 1.5 years or 2 years. And it's not about numbers, it's about how can I help more and more people to make their life more, just not having certificate is one thing, but productivity and the learning and the standardization of the project and program management, all these things are good things, are useful for you and for the organization. So don't just do certificate for the sake of certificate, just to have a PgMP, and you could get some, on the LinkedIn, and you get 500 people saying congratulations. That's a good thing. First 1, 2, 3 days you feel excited, but the learning you would have from this process of a PgMP or PfMP, it will stay with you forever. And that's what should be the target for you. So thank you, Joseph, and we are right on dot today. I think it's the first time. Normally we go over time, but other things, I've already shared the PDU code on the chat. So please check. If you don't have, let me know, and take a note of that. And if for any reason you cannot find the chat, let me know. I can share it, or if you can put it on the question chat. I don't see the chat, or can you share it again? Happy to do that. Or later on, you can book some time with me and go through your personal what you're aspiring to do, PgMP, PfMP, or Scale Agile, or DA certificate, anything. Whether I will be able to help you directly or indirectly, or I will. So best thing is just book a time. It's a free 15-minute time. People book 15 or go the half an hour and learn something new. Who knows what is coming to you? just like today, a lot of learning happened from Joseph. His experience as a program manager helped you to learn few good tips, how to have a good team, and emotional intelligence and the technical skills and sales skills, all will be helpful to you. So please wait for some time. The video will be uploaded on the YouTube very soon. So if you want to revisit the recording, please do that and go to the YouTube channel and subscribe it. You will be able to see another 50, I don't remember numbers, but 50 or 60 professionals just like Joseph who has already contributed. So listen to them and learn from them. And if it is within last 1 year, you will be able to also, some of the program can also give you PDU as well. All right, Joseph, any last minute thoughts, thinking going on in your mind?
No, I just want to say thank you, Dharam, for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you for, it takes a lot of effort for someone to come and, spend 1 hour and answer the questions. And before coming to the session, it's not easy. Somebody come and wake up in the morning and sit with Dharam and talk. No, it takes huge effort. And thank you for putting that effort. And you made this conversation very lively and exciting. And I'm sure people, the feedback I will get or I'm getting will definitely make you have added a lot into their life, professional life. Thank you.
Excellent. Happy to do it.
And thank you all of you. So please continue to join and learn from these sessions, and happy to be your mentor if you want to see that way, or anything I can help you with. All right. So guys, thank you once again, and you will see me soon, and hopefully I will see you soon in my class or talking to me just like that. Take care.
Excellent. Have a good weekend.
You too. Take care, guys. Bye.